Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how a number of people believe that the government are seeking to move from Brexit to net zero as their main agitator of public discourse in their efforts to continue to divide and rule us by making us mad at something that is not causing us any harm as a measure to distract us from our real abusers in the Conservative government. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So Brexit was achieved in a Conservative pincer movement, of course. David Cameron's austerity programme lowered people's standards of living, and Brexiteers in the party pointed out that this lowering of standards was caused by the EU. Vote to leave the EU and we will have the power to improve your lives immediately, they said. And they were really clear. Your food bills will be lower, your clothing bills will be lower, your energy bills will be lower, your taxes will be lower. Immediately, they said. Not quite how it's turning out, is it though? Of course, now they say that it will take a while longer, somewhere between 10 and 50 years before we see these immediate benefits. But it does mean that EU membership is the thing that is holding us back. You know, that's what they kept trying to say. That's what they kept trying to say. And now we've seen the reality. It's like, did it? Did it really? So now Conservatives need a new invented enemy to scare people with, because that's what this is all about. Invent a threat and claim that you are the only party who will protect the people from it. And it's relatively easy to do because no serious political party claims to be wanting to protect the people from an imaginary enemy. So now a number of people see the Conservatives targeting net zero for the same job. Caroline Lucas, who's the only Green Party MP in Westminster, wrote that Tories were claiming concern that net zero was hurting poor people. Steve Baker is the leader of the Conservatives' Net Zero Security Group. Someone like Baker was always going to be a prominent figure in such a group. He's ultra-right-wing and also represents a constituency where poverty, caused by the policies he championed, is really biting. He is facing a credible risk of losing his seat at the next election. So he frames all of his extreme views as if they benefit poor people. But just as with Brexit, his opposition to net zero will only hurt them more than anyone else. And what gets me is that it should be obvious that net zero policies will reduce costs, not increase them. But it's not obvious because the facts are not being pointed out by the media. For example, why are energy bills rising so high right now? Even in terms of what the public know about it, why are they rising so high? Oh, because of these global pressures, they say. Hang on a minute, what global pressures? Is it affecting the energy we produce from solar or wind or hydro? Well, no, of course not. Well, what global pressures then? Well, the cost of gas has risen, you know, all this aggro with Russia and so on. Well, a couple of things about that. First, gas is not a green resource. It's better than burning coal and oil, but you'd ideally reduce reliance on it. And if we reduce the amount of energy we produce from gas without switching back to coal and oil, and we generated more from low carbon sources, we would not be as sensitive to gas prices or coal prices or oil prices, for example. Would we? Well, no, we wouldn't. So it stands to reason that moves towards net zero will save us money. And the second thing to note, and I've pointed this out before, is that the cost of energy has not increased like this in France. Energy costs increased in the UK recently by 54%. In France, 4%. What's the difference? France levied a tax on energy profits and used the money to almost completely remove the burden for the public. So in actual fact, there are two obvious lessons to be learned from the recent energy price rises. First, we should move more quickly towards low carbon energy generation because it will make us less sensitive to global supply issues. And second, we should tax energy companies fairly for the public good. Nowhere in there is there even a hint that we should move away from low carbon solutions. But just because their arguments make no sense does not mean that they can be dismissed. Brexit made no sense. Oh, yeah, we're going to raise our standard of living by cutting ourselves off from the richest market we could ever trade with. It's a nonsense on every level. And yet it was sold to enough of the public to push it through. Worse than that, it was sold to the very members of the public who would be most hurt by it. You can see now, in terms of the economic impact, the regions that mostly voted Brexit tend to be the regions that are suffering the most economically. The overwhelming cost of living now is a direct result of electing the people who sold them the lies. Because democracy can be a selfish affair. In theory, if people voted for their own interests, like intelligently, well-informed, own interests. You could have a system of democracy that treats minorities very badly, and it would still be a very poor society. I mean, we do treat minorities very badly. But I mean, even if we voted for our own genuine self-interest, and political parties didn't lie about their policies, they said what policies they were proposing, and they were honest about that. You could easily have a majority government that acted in the interests of the majority who voted for them, but against everyone else. But this is way worse, because you have a government with a large majority, and yet they're putting efforts into hurting, well, they are putting efforts into hurting their political opponents, but they seem to be expending at least as much energy into crushing the people who actually voted for them. Because it seems to be an advantage to them. It was an advantage over Brexit. People wouldn't have voted for Brexit if their standard of living was all right. So actually hurting those people helped them with their Brexit ideology. So they can see the same thing now. Now we'll blame net zero. But again, if people's standard of living was okay, all of a sudden it was all right, they'd go, well, we're fine with net zero. We're okay. Crush their standard of living still further and tell them that it'll go away, their standard of living, right, yes, you vote for Brexit, well done, but you've got to keep going. Now you've got to vote against net zero. And Andrew Lewin, who's a Labour activist, wrote a blog about this issue as well. He's also of the view that those behind Brexit are wanting to move on to their next grift. Steve Baker is a focus here as well. How could he not be? Former chair of the ERG, the group without whom Brexit could never have happened. Like, forget Farage, forget Johnson, forget Putin. Without the likes of Steve Baker and his ERG infiltrators into the Conservative Party, Brexit would never have existed because it would have never got through Parliament. Even the referendum, the vote, the referendum could never have happened. Because it doesn't matter how many people you fooled into thinking it would be a good idea. No political party thought it was in their interests. That included the Conservative Party. Steve Baker is one of those who strong-armed the party into risking it and then took over when they got what they wanted. That is, that he is now leading a group set up to attack our environmental policies is worrying as a result. Because unlike Brexit, this negatively impacts the whole world, everyone. We are a large enough player to have a significant impact on the very future of the environment that we need to be able to live. And this is not saving a future many generations away. This is action needed for the next generation, for right now. So far, it has to be said, the UK has actually not done too badly on climate control, relatively speaking. Yes, we could and should have done more. We are still dragging our feet. But when I've taught environmental science in the past and had my students look at international league tables, it was actually welcome relief that for once I could teach something where we could genuinely claim to be world leading. And it's not just a moral cause, it's an economic one as well. The world is moving to net zero. It could move more quickly if we put our weight behind it, but it's moving that way at any rate. If we do not, then we're moving to a future where we are incompatible with the world. Because the problem with these conservatives is they think to themselves, oh, net zero costs. If we don't adopt net zero and everyone else does, then we'll be more competitive than them. We can sell our products. Brilliant, ching ching. But it doesn't work that way because the rest of the world will go, no, if you want to sell products to us, you're going to make sure they meet our standards. You cannot sell lower standard goods into a market than the bar is set. Can't do it. This will be very bad for trade, in fact. If you are not aligned with your major markets, it hits trade very poorly. We've seen that. We've seen it. Net zero is an essential policy. It's not even a matter of left or right wing, even though it might appear that all the critics are on the right. It's essential for our economy. There are just as many loud voices in favour of it on the right as there are on the left. It's essential to manage the cost of living. It's essential for our quality of life. It's even essential for our capacity to live at all before too long. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further. Please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.